Tässä on lähdemateriaalin osa 24, Elisan pako ja kultainen juna, käännettynä sana sanalta ja tarkasti englanniksi. Tämä osio kattaa katkelmat 79–108, jotka sijoittuvat ennen rakkaustarina T ja E-otsikkoa.
Osa 24, Black Stone and Green Emerald. That some pulsating evil was located in the middle of a dark, gloomy, misty, and rotting forest. That darkness was located by a black swamp in the middle of the forest. In it was a black, pyramid-shaped temple. On the swamp swarmed those bony, hairy devils, which pulsated a reddish-colored pulse-like fear. The swamp was full of skulls, blood, and innards, which those hairy creatures had hunted. The pyramid, as if sucked the blood and the innards into itself. Inside the pyramid was a weird symbol made of salt and candles on the floor in the temple made of bones. The floor was some leather, and in the middle of the symbol pulsated a black stone heart-shaped, into which flowed black blood from the roof of the pyramid, from which that stone sucked death into itself. As the lights of the candles flickered onto the walls of the bony temple, in the air around the stone floated black-hooded figures who chanted some curses and spells. They were the Black Angels, and they got their power from that stone. They sucked dark energy into themselves and saw visions where they sacrificed humans to the stone. From this terrible vision, Eliza woke up wet from sweat in her beautiful log-framed cabin, heart beating crazily. Eliza sighed tensely. What could that be? At the same time, a wooden decorated cuckoo clock on the log wall started to cuckoo. Eliza's heart jumped to her throat and she snapped, "Now that's enough! I am going to the forest for a walk." With the logs smelling in the air and the red roses which were in a green embroidered vase on an old Victorian table, Eliza rose slowly from her beautiful wooden bed and stepped along the cool log floor to the old window. Morning mist was on the backyard meadow, and the larch forest rose beautiful behind it. Must dress warmer, Eliza thought. Eliza put a black hoodie and sweatpants on her. On the back of the hoodie was a picture of a white galloping horse. Eliza looked from the wood-patterned mirror at her beautiful face. The eyes shone like supernatural light, those beautiful green eyes. For a moment, Eliza would have as if seen white glowing crosses at her dark irises. Eliza took from the bookshelf her old grandpa's wartime Bible. Eliza opened the Bible at the book of Revelation, where it read that Jesus comes on a white steed and the saints with him. On the page was a photograph of Grandpa as young, and he rode on a white steed, and he had a military uniform on him. On the back, read a message to Eliza. Poem, striking a bright lightning. From east to west, the clatter of the Lord's white war steeds is heard, fetching his bride. Into the winds, into the thunderclouds, two-edged sword, piercing that evil dragon, is the eternal victory of Christ. As Elisa opened the old front door of the cabin, in the yard floated pollen and white butterflies. Just as the morning sun was rising and glowing from behind the forest clearing in front, Elisa clip-clopped barefoot along the cool path. The meadow, which was on both sides, so there moved something. With the heart bouncing in Eliza's chest, she turned to look. There ate hay at least 10 white-tailed deer. They stared at Elisa with their dark eyes. Warmth and a wide smile rose to Elisa's face. After admiring them for a while, they sprang into the forest. As the path continued into the larch forest, the conifer needles pinched Elisa's toes gently. The sun cast rays into the enormously beautiful spruce forest. After walking the path for a while, into the middle of the forest came a grassy clearing, which was full of white Arctic starflowers. This was Eliza's secret place. Elisa went to lie on the grass amidst the flowers and fell asleep. When Eliza woke up, it was already dark, and around floated thousands of fireflies, which occasionally revealed the beautiful Arctic starflowers on the grass. And the sky was seen the Bear constellation and a shooting star. Somewhere was heard the most magnificent howling of wolves. I wonder how long I snoozed, Elisa thought, with all the beauty surrounding her. Elisa heard in her innermost the voice of God. It said, "Toivo, hope is waiting for you in the jewel mansion." A tear flowed from Elisa's eyes. Toivo had slept away last year, exhausted by a long illness. Memory returned for Elisa to the hospital room, where they held each other by the hand. In Elisa's hand glowed a diamond ring next to an emerald ring. Do you remember this moment when we were on the shore of the open sea and you said, "I do"? I will remember it eternally, Toivo. And at the same time, Tivo took his last breath and the heart monitor beeped a flat line. "Nurse! Nurse!" shouted Eliza, crying. Tears flowed like pearls from Elisa's beautiful green eyes when she remembered Toivo. "We will see each other yet, darling." Next, the fireflies vanished and it became dark. Only the moon glowed its dim light into the forest. The spruces started to look threatening. They were like dark hands which swayed towards Elisa. The howling of the wolves turned into a scary echo, which broke Elisa's ears. Some scary, black-hooded dwarf rode on a black wolf in front of Elisa. From under the hood showed red eyes, and black drool flowed from the mouth of the growling, teeth-showing wolf. The dwarf had in his hand a black staff, at the end of which was a black pearl, from which the stars reflected like screaming souls. Elisa started to run towards the cabin along the path as the shadows glided in the terrible forest. Elisa held her head occasionally. It ached enormously. Looking back while running, The creature was gone. Arriving at the meadow, there was a thick mist, and something moved outright, swarmed in the tall grass. It was a white-tailed deer's corpse full of worms. Elisa held back vomit. To the place of the cabin in front had appeared a small, black, cabin-sized castle. The castle had towers, and from the sooty walls of the castle flowed green liquid mold. The door handle of the castle was made of black bones. Elisa breathed really heavily, and her heart was about to come out of her chest when she heard enormous screams of agony from behind the door. "Cree!" was heard another shout from the dark sky. "We got you, Elisa! Welcome to hell!" Elisa startled and woke up in the cabin to the chime sound of the old grandfather clock. "A terrible nightmare. I must pray." Sweat flowed along Elisa's face, and she started to pray in tongues in Koine Greek. At the same time, Elisa got a vision of a bright waterfall where Toivo's mother smiled. Suddenly, Toivo appeared in the picture next to his mother, smiling. Elisa heard Jesus' voice. "I have gone beforehand to prepare a jewel mansion for you." Suddenly, into the cabin stepped John, the friend of Toivo's mother, who lived nearby. John said, "A storm is coming. We must leave." I knew what he meant. Elisa snatched Grandpa's Bible and left with John. I jumped into John's red SUV. John drove fast along the forest road forward. To the right turned a forested highway. John turned in a power slide onto the road. In front was a logging truck, which John barely dodged to the right lane. The horn of the logging truck echoed in my head, and we drove so close that the fresh spruces scented to the nose. We sped along the highway towards the south. Towards us came suddenly an enormous amount of Army military equipment, cannons, and armored vehicles. Above flew helicopters. 2 fighter jets, 2 flew really low. "What is this, John?" John answered, "Invasion. The Black Angels have attacked." Suddenly, the radio crackled, and a hasty reporter's speech was heard intermittently. "Several prayer cities Sirut bombed." Suddenly, the radio's clock stopped at 6:66, and started to be heard from the radio a chilling voice. "Good citizens." John kicked. "The radio broken." "What now?" said Elisa John. Answered it. It was the Antichrist. As we drove to a clearing, I saw as if the most terrifying cloud wall approaching us. In the clouds, there were like screaming skulls, and inside the cloud flashed. And always when I saw a flash, I saw black fighter jets and helicopters full of the cloud. "The soulless are coming," said John, and took from the back seat an automatic machine gun. Parachutes rained from the sky upon us, thousands. In front of us on the road landed black-suited soldiers. John opened fire, and they fell immediately. The SUV thumped as it drove over the bodies. As the car sped along the forested highway, it would be as if from the dark sky had been heard scary sounds of horns. I saw when some of the black paratroopers blew into the horns. Above us flew a helicopter, which pulsated fear into the air. Jump Alyssa John outright threw me out of the car. I tumbled into the bushes of the nearby forest, and when I was losing my consciousness, I saw how the helicopter spat from below onto the car a black net which corroded the car. With John screaming his agonizing death scream. The car also caught fire as it melted. I lost my consciousness and saw for a moment Toivo and myself in some kind of heavenly wedding. Elisa was dressed in a long white bridal veil, and Tivo in a fine tuxedo. Toivo's eyes sparkled and smiled to Elisa. "Flee." "Excuse me? What did you say, Toivo?" And from Toivo's eyes, ears, mouth, and nose started to flow profusely blood. Toivo rattled, "Flee, Elisa." Elisa woke up amidst the twigs and started stumbling to run into the forest. From behind was heard shouts, "Cree! We will catch you, Elisa!" Elisa sprang into a full run. The forest was gloomy, and beard lichens hung from the trees. Poisonous fly agarics were everywhere on the green mounds. Above flew flocks of bats, and into the trees were entwined exceptionally large spider webs. Elisa looked behind her. Rode a black-hooded black angel. Under the hood clattered jawbones in a bloody dark skull. Running at full speed in the forest, Eliza bumped into some animal's carcass which hung from a tree with a chain and a hook. In front came the most terrible sight. Eliza heard from inside her head a voice, "Cree, welcome to the forest of death." Humans and animals hung from hooks in the trees. It would be as if even one tree was decorated by some sick Santa Claus. It was full of bodies up to the treetop. Even the treetop had a pierced body. "Who terrible has done this?" mumbled Eliza from terror and vomited. Elisa started to pray and turned towards her pursuers, took her grandpa's Bible. As she prayed, it would be as if from the Bible had started to float fiery letters, which floated in the air. From them formed the words, "Every weapon that rises against you will be ineffective." At the same time, the whole forest flared up to burn, and a huge burning spruce top broke in the flames and pierced the black angel and tarantula in front. Splits was heard when the branch pierced the creature. It as if burned and melted at the same time. Elisa started to run amidst the fire and dodged the falling, burning branches. Elisa ran to a clearing from which was seen below a valley where there seemed to be some kind of weird city. There, and quickly, Elisa thought and started to run down the hill to the gloomy city of the valley. Arriving under the valley in front of Elisa rose a black-patterned iron gate. When Elisa stepped close to it, it suddenly, as if by itself, creaked open. In front was a stinking, rotting garden, in the middle of which was some kind of green, acid-spitting fountain, which hissed. Elisa took from her breast pocket a respirator, which she had used while renovating the cabin. The mask felt stuffy and oppressive. On the wall of the garden cabin was a plaque which read something in Hebrew. Elisa translated it slowly. It read, Yevel Gabah, daughter of Baruch. Rhyme. Key, in the middle of the spring. Key to the city of joyous people. I wonder what it meant. And she remembered the fountain. She took a thick garden glove from the ground which reached up to the arm. She looked at the basin of the fountain. It bubbled with acid. Quickly, Elisa put the glove on her hand and started to fish the basin. The glove started to corrode quickly. She touched some kind of lever, which she turned to the right. The glove almost had time to melt, and the acid melted a part of the skin of Elisa's hands. Ouch! Elisa pulled her hand away, and the door of the garden cabin opened. Elisa ran inside and noticed a sink in the cabin. She put the blistery, throbbing hand under the cold water. Elisa prayed in her mind and saw how Jesus touched the leper and his skin became healthy. At the same time, Elisa startled and looked at her hand. It would be as if it had brightened for a moment, and the blisters melted away. Elisa walked along the corridor, which was full of garden furniture, and thanked God for her healed hand. She opened the front door of the cabin, and in front opened an evening dusk cobblestone street and Victorian beautiful houses. There was something weird here. It was so quiet and dusky. Suddenly, from somewhere far away, was heard the whistle sound of an old train, and it started to rain. At the same time, the Victorian high street lamps lit up to burn. Elisa put the hood on her head and started to walk along the cobblestone street. At the same time, in the air echoed the thumps of a church bell. Ding, ding, and I heard the clatter of horses. In front of me came white horses which pulled patterned horse carriages. They stopped in front of me. Water flowed from my hood, and at the same time I startled a lightning struck flashing in the sky. I was suddenly inside the carriage, on the most comfortable seat. I heard the words in my soul. Midnight. Bells ring. Horses to the church the travelers took. As the horses went, I saw candles and moving shadows in the windows of the houses. We arrived at the yard of a huge medieval church. Two gargoyles grimaced above the huge wooden doors. I stepped out of the carriage and the sky thundered, and the carriage had disappeared and the rain stopped. I climbed the stairs beside which were two knight statues. To the door of the church, I knocked on the huge patterned door knocker. The door rumbled open. In front was a huge fresco where Jesus carried a sheep on his shoulder, and the candles cast shadows around the church. The organ started to play a gloomy melody. I stepped into the rearmost bench of the church's bench rows and prayed. After the prayer, Elisa took from her hoodie's pocket her grandpa's Bible and opened it at the Psalms. The psalm told of kingship, and to the page was taped a golden key. "What is this?" Elisa thought. Elisa's attention turned suddenly to the patterned wooden altar in front of the church's fresco. In it was an old wooden chest and a lock. "Let's try," Elisa thought. And with the walk echoing in the church's medieval hall, she arrived at the altar in front of the chest. Elisa kneeled and tried the key. The lock snapped open. As she opened the chest, green light shone onto Elisa's face, with the candles reflecting onto the palm-sized emerald inside. "What is this?" Elisa lifted the emerald, which started to reflect a beautiful green light into the whole prayer chamber of the church. Under the emerald was a message written on paper. "The color of life. The rainbow of life. Above the throne of God." "What is this, some poem?" Elisa thought. From afar echoed the train's whistle again. Elisa stepped out of the church. She had taken from the church wall an old shoulder bag into which she put the emerald, the message, and the Bible. Being outside, at the same time it started to rain, and as the lightning flashed and thundered, Elisa was in the blink of an eye on an old train platform. Mist covered the platform. From the mist came an old steam locomotive chugging, and the mist making way from its path. From the speakers was heard a crackling voice. "The last train to Paradise leaves from platform 7. With the train cars squeaking in front of me, the old train car door opened by itself in front of me. I stepped inside. The interior of the car, the seats were red leather and Victorian-patterned wood. On a marble green table was bread and wine. I sat, prayed, and ate the communion. The train sped along an old bridge which seemed to cross an ocean. I started to walk along the train cars and arrived at some heart car. In the middle were green palms made of emerald, and they were open. Suddenly, outside, it became pitch black. A huge red blood-leaking skull mouth wide open approached the train. Lightnings and clouds circled the skull. "It is going to swallow the train." Elisa was horrified. Then she remembered the emerald. "Put it into the heart of the train," a voice was heard. Elisa took the stone which glowed and put it on the green emerald hands. And the whole train started to pulsate the most beautiful green light. When the light hit the dark skull, it, as if exploded into sparks and vanished into the air. From the train's speakers was heard, "Death. Life has won. We arrive in paradise." I heard the singing of the angel's voice getting stronger, the most beautiful sound in the world. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! The train turned transparent and golden glittering.
In front of me was a golden city,
and saw Jesus reaching out his hand, in which were the marks of the nail.
and at the same time, Toivo's face appeared in the brightness with a huge smile on his face.
Elisa grabbed Toivo by the hand.
And at the same time was seen a vision from above of a green earth-shaped paradise where rose a cube-shaped golden city.
Love has won.